So it is 8 o'clock and we are at the intersection. I'm getting some feedback.
I
Does
just
anybody
muted
else
myself.
hear that or is that just me?
No, I took care of it.
Okay, thank you. Um, so first up and up front, um, it happens. And yesterday, the Surgeon General's office notified me that they had to reschedule it to next Thursday. And so if some of you had not heard that, because we had also put out information through our broadest of network last week, that probably means that you are not on the notification list for at the intersection. So you received probably our news from last week and the September survey that we've been running. But today we're going to be talking about resiliency hubs. Again, for those who are just coming in, yesterday I was notified by the Surgeon General's office. They could not come today, but they will be coming next Thursday, like they promised, pinky swear. And I asked them to do that. So pinky swear. So my apologies. So if you did not get the notice yesterday, that the Surgeon General's office was not coming today, that means you're not on the intersection notification list. And we would really like for you to be there. So for some reason, let's see, here we go. I got chat going on here. I am going to put my email address in the chat, which is also where you got the notifications this last week. So if you did not get the notification that the Surgeon General's office will not be with us today, but next week, that means you're not on this notification list and we'd like you to be there. So my email is now in chat. And if you could just email me and even just say, put me in the list, then I'll know it's for this morning. And then you'll get the regular notifications for this gathering every week. So my apologies. And I know that some of you were very excited about that, and I still am excited. So good morning. We'll start again. It's good to see everybody who's with us today. Let's see, we're going to take a couple announcements. And I do notice that one of the folks who are bringing our briefing, Brian, is with us, so we're good there. Next Friday, not tomorrow, a week from tomorrow, October 6th, is the eve of my birthday. And so I hope that, no, that's not the announcement. Anyway, there is a gathering on Friday morning. It's 8 to noon. There is a prayer service at 8 o'clock called Faith and Blue. And so it's a national gathering that happens across the country of faith leaders and public safety officers, and prayers for our public safety. Following that, at 9 o'clock, from 9 until noon, there is a multi-faith symposium that will be between faith, community, and civic leaders on violence prevention here in our city. It will be a community conversation. So we'll all get a chance to talk and voice concerns, but try to figure out together as community how we can make our way forward. So I'll put the link into that. There's no cost. And I think I heard something about breakfast tacos and coffee. So I'll put that link for registration, and I hope many of you show up. Other announcements while we give more people a chance to join us. The NAMI walk is on my birthday. They do that just to celebrate my life. So I'm going to jump in and Doug's going to follow. It's on October 7th, Saturday morning at the zoo. At what time, Doug?
7 a.m. to 9 a.m. So you get a chance to wake up the animals. So come on down. And this is a great walk, and it's a chance for our community to help stamp out the stigma of mental illness. And we hope everybody will come. It's really a great event. The mayor will be there. Henry Ramos from Channel 5 is going to help MC. And we're going to celebrate Ann's birthday.
And Martha Ann, I hear that we have a Nobel Peace Laureate coming to town. Tell us more. Turn up your mic. Martha Ann, your mic.
Rigoberta Menchú, Guatemalan, first Indigenous woman to get the Nobel Peace Prize. And I'll put the link in the chat box in just a moment. It's going to be a wonderful gathering, and some of our San Antonio Peace Laureates are going to be sitting right there and acknowledged on the first row. So we hope you will come and be renewed in peace and justice and community.
Tell me again where at UIW that's going to be.
The Bennett Concert Hall. So it's facing Broadway. The Fine Arts Building is right on the corner of Broadway and Hildebrand, and the Bennett Concert Hall is next to that.
Thanks. Joseph has his hand up, and then Emma.
Morning, everybody. I think Tuesday, October 3rd is National Night Out. There may also be a different name for it now. There's a bunch of different block parties going on throughout the city. We're going to have one at our property, Town Twin Village. If you're part of a community anywhere that's having one of these things, if you want to stop by Town Twin, be aware that that's going on in the evening time. We started, I think, 6:30, something like that. So I hope it's a good night.
Thanks, Joseph. Emma?
Well, I just wanted to say, you know, we're special. We share the same birthday, October the 7th. Woo-hoo-hoo. Yeah.
It's the best day, except for everybody else's birthday, right?
This Saturday, I would like to invite everyone out to Sharing Hope. It's Community Suicide Awareness event. We're going to, NAMI is partnering with congregations and pastors in District 2 from 9 to 2. Our special guest councilman, Jalen Rodriguez, will be there. We have awesome presenters that are going to be speaking. We're looking for everyone to come out and support that. I put the information in the flyer in the chat. Hope to see you this Saturday from 9 to 2. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And it's so exciting. I know you will make 12. I now know 12 people who share that same birthday. So that's kind of fun.
Wow.
So I see that Brian is with us. And so we're going to jump in. I'm still checking on Douglas. Again, for those who might have joined in a little bit later, my apologies, but yesterday I was notified by the federal U.S. Surgeon General's office that they would not be able to come today, but they will be, pinky swear, be with us next Thursday. So today we've had a couple conversations on resiliency hubs, and those have been continue to come into being, but we're kind of hearing about them in different ways, similar ways, connected ways. And so we're kind of coming into a new knowing. And I invited Brian, who's with us from the fire department, who talks about resiliency hubs for times of emergency, like hurricanes and super cold weather and things like that. And Doug Melnick is also supposed to be joining us from the Office of Sustainability. He talks about resiliency hubs in terms of daily living and sustainability from one day to the next. And so when I think about both of these and I put them together, you know, it makes me think of home. Is that not the healthiest home we're trying to create? That place that we go in times of emergencies, right? But also in our daily living that sustains us. So those are growing and developing and how they're going to work. And I've invited both of them to come and kind of give us their update. And the big question, Brian, in all of it, so give us an update, but how can we help is the big question. How can the faith and the community at large help with this? It meets a need, but our question is, how can we help?
So I think, well, first of all, thank you. I didn't realize I was second place today, the Surgeon General, but
Sorry.
it's all well and good. I still love you. Uh, so this is kind of a new approach for the city. It started right after the winter storm came through, and with the community preparedness group that the mayor got together, they had suggested that we really need to look at, from an emergency response standpoint, having places that the community could go that were distributed throughout the city, in order to be safe if something like that happens again. Those resources are to have be hardened facilities, and what I mean by that is have generator power, enough food and water that people could stay if they needed to. We could do some congregate sheltering at them, but in the meantime, they would act as preparedness locations. And so we went down the road. We were allotted some money. It turns out that generators are way more expensive than I ever thought that they were. And I don't know if that's because the city's buying them or because they're just really that expensive. But we actually picked 4 locations, city locations. And the reason we picked city locations was because those are the easiest facilities for us to modify. We don't get into liability issues. We don't get into indemnification issues, anything like that. And we actually spent the money on generators. So we have 4 hubs, as we're calling them now, that we have stood up. They're community and senior centers around the city. We do have some holes in our coverage that we're trying to address. But those have been stood up a couple of different times for warming centers. They've also been stood up during some power outages that we've had around the city, and just there are places that people can go if we need that congregation location. So from an emergency management standpoint, that's been a great deal for us. Actually, in this year's budget, the city we've been allotted some more funds to actually create 2 more of the city sponsored or city funded locations. And we're going through our process right now to figure out which locations that are going to be. I can tell you Miller's Pond Community Center and Copernicus Center are the 2 locations that we're really looking at based on their location and some of the amenities that they have at those locations. And we look for things like access. Do they have a via bus stop that's near them? Are they going to get flooded out if we have a flood event? Or what's the infrastructure like over there? Could it take a generator? Is there space to do these things? And so we look at all of those different things. And then geography is also a definite factor in that, because we want to make sure that we're spreading this out throughout the city, but we also want to look at our vulnerable populations as well and take that into consideration. So from that perspective, we've done in my opinion, and it's I'm kind of biased in this, but I think we've done a pretty good job. However, we've also realized in going through this that there's been some holes in the plan. And number one is staffing. So during times of emergency, if we have another Winter Storm Uri, we usually staff congregate shelters with firefighters and police officers. We also get some groups that come in to help us out, the American Red Cross, San Antonio Food Bank, all of our community partners that everyone is well aware of, I'm sure. However, that staff is taking people off the street from making emergency runs. And so it's really not feasible for the city to staff any more than what we're going to put on. However, there's still a need out in the community. And so what we'll be looking for on the emergency management side is up to 5 locations that will be community-based hubs. And we got to realize there's some semantic issues here. And I know Ann and I have talked about it quite a bit, as well as me and as Doug and I have talked about it quite a bit. And so there's going to be some semantics issues here. So bear with me, and I'll explain everything in the end, I promise. but these 5 locations that are community-based, we're going to be looking for partners that could supply a facility that will meet the needs of the people that would come there. They could supply staff and then security. So one thing that we have found is that security is a big issue when you're starting to have people congregate in your location, especially during times of emergency. There have been issues between the unsheltered population and families that are coming into these locations. And so with that, we would also supply logistical needs. So we're putting, we call them push packs, but they're bundles of pallets of enough equipment and supplies to congregate shelter up to 100 people. We would provide training. And so we're working on a training outline now and a training plan to where our shelter managers and shelter team would come in and train the personnel at the location to stand up these shelters, and then provide support and sponsorship. And so we will I mean, I can tell you we're going to value these relationships, but dependability is a big thing that we need to look at. So that's going to be an arduous process to go through. We're working on the matrix right now as far as what that looks like for the selection process. And basically, Ann is really helping us get the word out on that we're going to be looking for these locations. And so I thank her for that, her and her team actually for that. And so, so that's where we're at on the emergency side. Now, we've also been made aware, and we've looked at other models. You can look at Baltimore, Houston, Austin, around the country, that the resiliency concept is broader, right? And so where there's an emergency management function to this, we've also realized there's a day-to-day function with resiliency. And so there's issues that happen in your communities every single day that people just need help, right? Or they need a place where they can go. It's very similar to pretty much any religious organization that I've been a part of, is people want that place to where they can go and feel safe. They want that place to where they can go and feel comfortable, have that sense of family. Ann had brought up the term home. I'm not sure we want them living there, but that's a whole different outlook, depending on your perspective, I guess. But in that, how do we merge these two programs together to bring on those day-to-day functions of resiliency and needs in our community? And that's really where Doug and his group in sustainability are going to come into this, and working with Ann and everybody on this call. I'm hopeful. But we want to do good in the community as well.
Mm-hmm. So that's also a very good transition into Doug's work in sustainability. So what I've heard is that where the community can collaborate on these sheltering times, more in terms of emergency, are in 5 different locations. And Brian, I'm going to invite you, if you're open to putting your email in the chat. So if there are locations that are open and interested in having this conversation to be at their location, you can contact Brian, and that conversation can begin. Now, one of the things too, and then I see that Douglas is with us. Then we're going to shift to Douglas to the daily sustainability portion of it. But this is, kind of for everyone, but Brian and Douglas, a lot of our collaborative work, which is the work that we do here in the Faith-Based Initiative, is based on 2 researched items, really strong on 2 items, that the initiatives across the country that have the largest impact are in geographical proximity to the needs. They're not on the other side of town. They're in proximity, geographical proximity. So what both of you are talking about is bringing, creating resiliency hubs in geographies across San Antonio that are in proximity to those human needs. The other point of that research of greater impact is that those needs and those efforts meet the most basic of human needs on the Maslow hierarchy. That would be food, housing, shelter, safety, And so where this connects for this particular community group, that collaboration, is that it's doing this. What you guys are talking about is in geographical proximity, and it's also working at those very basic human needs. So Douglas, I'm handing it over to you. Brian gave us an update from his work, but the big question was then, how can the people here that are here today collaborate with that? How can we help? Where is that intersection? I'm glad you're with us.
Yeah, sorry I'm late. I didn't realize you guys started at the crack of 8, so I apologize. But
Used to be
no, I think,
7:30.
yeah, no, I think the real focus of our work where it overlaps is it's really more on the capacity building side. It's sort of acknowledging that community-based organizations are already doing this work. You're already in the community serving this resilience function. And so what we're looking to do is create basically a CBO resilience network where our office will coordinate peer learning, education, trying to work with CBOs that want to get into the space more, on a process to really work with their communities to define, well, what resilience is, how can they better sort of serve those needs of the community. So it's different from a formal resilience hub that Chief Norris is talking about. This is really trying to enhance just those day-to-day services that folks are already receiving from these CBOs. But I also believe it could be a pipeline for entities that may want to move into another phase with Chief Norris. Again, there's different requirements. When they need to be activated on an emergency basis, there's lots of these things that need to fall into place. But at the same time, we believe that we can support these CBOs just already. And so we're going to try to define how big the first cohort could be. I think the budget was just passed. October 1 is coming up. So we're going to be fleshing out what that looks like, and hopefully have a formal launch in the next couple months. My climate adaptation manager, Kate, has already been talking with several CBOs, particularly in specific neighborhoods. There's tons of interest, but I think it's more on the coordination side. So I see us working with CBOs, many of you on this call, and then they will be the conduit for us to work with their community. So there needs to be a collaboration between those organizations and their community. And the one thing I'll say is we're really going to be looking for a commitment to engage their community, because I think that's the key to resilience is, and these CBOs already know, right? It's not like they don't know what their community needs, but just to make sure that we're really supporting that process and then really sort of helping those organizations to take it to the next level if they'd like. So I'll just pause there, but that's the general idea.
Okay, so we're getting a little background noise from you, Douglas. Not too bad, but just so that you
I'm in a
know.
coffee shop.
Oh, well, I'm just glad you're here and we can hear you and understand you. I just want you to know. So what I hear too from you, Douglas, is that they're a partnership. And Brian had mentioned 5. You didn't mention a number, so that seems to be kind of open. But a setting, could be a congregational setting, could be other settings as well, some organization, that kind of a day in, day out, weekly kind of commitment to creating community capacity and resilience. Sometimes I think that's why congregations were set up, That was our original kind of thing. So if you wouldn't mind putting your email, if people, congregations, and I know there are a couple of congregations who are very much interested, they could maybe contact you and start to make those connections. We don't have to wait until the whole plan is figured out. We can start conversations so we can start moving that way. And we don't want to waste any more time. We need these things set up. And I know we're all aware of that. One thing, and I know we've had this conversation before, but it's been a bit. And maybe Doug or somebody from NAMI can respond, but I think there are currently 20 different congregational cohorts, and those are congregations of different kinds that are in near geographic proximity, that are across the entire geography of San Antonio. And the plan is to keep creating more so that they reach more and more people. And it seems to me that there might be a natural linkage for both of the kind of things you were talking about. Both can happen. Both what Brian's talking about and what Douglas is talking about can happen in the same location. Is not right? Doesn't have to be two different places.
No,
So,
actually, it's preferred they're in the same location.
There. So that's good to hear too. And
So if
go
I can
ahead.
throw something in, Ann,
Sure.
some of this is simple, right? And so just to give you a philosophical background on my end, and I think the city is going down that, is it realizes it can't pay for everything, right? And so there's not any one emergency that's going to affect the whole city. And just take the heat this summer. It was kind of ridiculous that we would say, and I don't mean that, I mean that tongue in cheek, that we would say, hey, go to a city library and that's the only place you can go to stay cool. Well, we all know that's not the truth. We've been in South Texas all of our lives, a lot of us. It's going to get hot. So go to the mall, go to church, go to a temple, go to wherever you want. If we can give a listing of those locations where people can just go and sit and stay cool, that is something that we look at as what we call community risk reduction, right? So they're not staying in their hot house, they're not staying in all those things. And they're just simple ways that we can look at building resilience in the community. And working together, I think we can even get to a place to where we have them all on one location, where if somebody doesn't know where to go, they can look on a website or on their phone and say, oh, I can go to this church and stay cool. I don't have to go sit at a library. And so some of these missions, as I'll call them, are extremely simple. It's just a matter of coordinating it and figuring out that coordination. I can tell you, and I don't know how Doug feels about it, the one thing that we ask is just that be dependable in what you say. So if you're going to tell us you're going to be open, be open. Because that's one of the biggest hazards, and with the city throwing their name behind anything, we just want to make sure people can get help where we're saying they can get help. So that'll be the process that we need to work out. And there'll be emergency functions, there'll be day-to-day functions, but it is definitely going to cross at there's a lot of intersections. How's that?
Right. That's one reason this is called At the Intersection. That's another thing, though, I think, with the cohorts, that when you have, a half a dozen congregations who are already in geographical proximity, right? They're not far from each other. And if one of those becomes like a hub for what we're talking about today, then the commitment could also be from across the cohort. When it really needs to kind of stand up for an emergency, all of the service that can be provided by the residents, the San Antonians who live there, can be a collective effort among the half a dozen congregations and not just the one. So it strengthens that community capacity, right? So I'm going to pause just briefly. Can you guys stay with us maybe another 5-10 minutes? I know, Douglas, you have something at 8:45, so great. I'm just going to pause, and Peter has his hand up. We're coming to you, Peter. So it's 8:29. Those who need to leave at 8:30, thank you for being with us this morning. And it's good to know that the Surgeon General's office can bring a crowd, and we have a nice group of people participating today. So next week, the U.S. Surgeon General's office will be with us, and we hope you come. And if you're not on this regular e-notification list, just send me an email and we'll get you there. So thank you for being with us. Peter, your hand's up.
Yes, thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug and Brian, for being on with us today. I know we've had some side conversations on this, and wanted to just give a little background. I'm with New Life Christian Center. We established the 9/11 educational initiative when we built the 9/11 memorial. And the first 5 to 6 years, we worked directly with the Office of Emergency Management with Bexar County, and we helped to stand up the Citizen Corps program there. So I'm very well aware with that part of the program. And one thing that I remember, and it's so close to what you're saying, and which is resiliency. And that resiliency and establishing that before the disaster is what's going to help you rebound much quicker. And of course, those vulnerable communities are the ones that have the greatest need. So I see 3 different perspectives, and they're merging as we've talked about today, which is that emergency management component, having a place to go to be safe. Then there's what I would call the environmental sustainability component, which is very unique and it's very much the eco SA conversations we're having with that type of resiliency. Then there's a social resiliency, which is on the front end and the back end. And I would say that registered care and what you were talking about, Anne, the cohorts are so critical because they're already established. And I applaud the work on the east side because they've been so well established there. I'm on the southwest side. We're not there yet. We've started our registered care program and we look forward to expanding it. But I think that's really at the heart of where we can start to add that resiliency at that level, because it's so critical to have that mental wellness, and everything else triggers off of that and growing it. So Doug, my question to you is I've asked questions about the specific funding, and I know you've shared about how it's capacity building, and that's great, building those nonprofits. Specifically, the Baltimore model and the resiliency, when we talk about what a resiliency hub looks from that perspective, because I know the social resiliency and of course emergency management resiliency hub, but can you just quickly expound on that, on what that could look like in a resiliency hub that is more, I would call it environmental, I don't know what you would call it, environmental resiliency or sustainability?
Well, I mean, I think the only thing I would say to that is that it's community driven. And again, I think we start getting into semantics between, an official city designated hub and the day-to-day work that CBOs are doing. So I think the position that we're taking as far as the supporting a cohort of organizations around resilience is more community-led. So everyone's going to look differently, and I think we can go in with our sort of predetermined thoughts about what resilience means, right? Making sure the lights are on, making sure there's access to water, several things. But again, every community is going to. So I think we go in with a suite of look, this is what resilience means, from our high level perspective. But then we want to help facilitate that conversation between that CBO and their community to really sort of drill down what it is that they need. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but it's more. I think what you had said earlier is really the key point. Building that everyday resilience is going to help in those emergencies, and that's sort of the point of this. And if they need to be activated, that's when certain criteria kicks in. So we're looking at how do we build that everyday resilience? How do we make those connections between the community, the CBO, other city resources and services? So it's more. I think it's a very comprehensive approach we want to take.
And so would your just to follow up on that question really quick, Doug, so would the support for capacity building be also for that social services component that we're talking about when we talk about resiliency in respect to sustainability? Well, like what I just shared about the bridges to care, like that social services or providing needs, housing type of needs, and those type of things that are when we talk about the sustainability and resiliency, like let's say the REIS fund as a source of funding, if any of that were to be used for capacity building.
So what we are proposing as part of the network is really based upon education and support. That's the big thing. I think there is a small amount of money in the budget that we could provide potentially some specific resources, but again, it's to be determined. But I think this is, again, I want to make it clear that this is us facilitating and supporting. I don't think we want to get into specific programming. You know, I think it's more, and I think it's more towards Ann's point, start building a cohort that's communicating amongst themselves and creating strength in numbers. And so I think it's more from the network perspective, as opposed to we're going to work with one specific organization and really get into the weeds with them. I think we want to try to sort of support that conversation to help even first define what resilience means, and then figure out, well, what's that roadmap to that next level. But
Let's
yeah,
move
I
on
think
to
that-
the other
but-
questions.
Thank you.
But it is like, it's a puzzle, and that it takes community to create community and care for community. So the city would be part of the community, pulling that together and supporting it and doing what its part. Well, West Care is in the Zoom room, I can see. David, your hand's up.
Sorry. Good morning, everyone. I appreciate this conversation. This is such a needed service throughout the city, and it's fantastic to hear. I just have a couple questions with regards to the some of the things that Chief Norris has stated, and just wanted some clarity around it. One was in regards to the facilities and the locations. It sounds like that the facilities and locations has already been identified throughout San Antonio using the Equity Atlas. Is that accurate or no?
The city facilities that we're going to use, like I told you, we already have 4 up and running.
Okay.
There's 2 more that we're looking at, and based on social vulnerability, some of the other things that we have in our matrix, Miller's Pond and Copernicus look like they're the locations that we'll be utilizing for city facilities. Of the up to 5 based community sponsored ones, I can tell you, in my opinion, right now, we really need to look at something on the northwest side. It may not fit into the social vulnerability index as one would say that's the need, but that's where all our bad stuff happens. It seems to go. So if you look at the recent ice storm that we had in January, realizing that that's the top of the hill in San Antonio and all the water runs down this way. We do a lot of things to protect downtown and downhill, but all the high water crossings and all that flood are on the northwest side. And so
Okay.
We're looking at it from the emergency perspective, both based on social vulnerability, but also need to make sure we have resources to protect everyone in San Antonio.
Okay. Can I just follow that up with one last question, and I'll let it go? I know everyone else is.
Well, and your boss is waiting next in line, so that's fine, David. Take your time.
Oh, sorry.
I know
in
how that
regards
is.
to the capacity build that you had mentioned of staff and security, is there a guideline in terms of what is that ratio of the up to that 100 community members that is being supported? What that ratio that you're looking for, that sweet spot?
There is, and actually that's a way deeper question when we go into that stuff and what needs to be provided.
Okay.
In general, I would say 1 to 2 security officers and up to 3 or 4 personnel per shift is what we've been able to do, depending on if we're actually going to have to shelter people there. And by shelter, I mean lay out the cots, have people spending the night, feeding, all of those other things add a degree of difficulty to what the personnel needs for that.
Fantastic. Appreciate it. Thank you, ma'am.
We're going to take
Yes, sir.
one last question. I know that Douglas needs to leave. And Beverly, you can open your mic, but I was just thinking about you this morning. I was thinking, where has Beverly been? So good to see you here. Beverly?
So sorry.
She must have had
I
to
said,
step.
I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay.
Can
Here
you
she
hear me?
is. Yes, we can.
Okay. I have truly missed you all. You're an incredibly therapeutic group to be around. I want to thank you and just let you know we've had some unfortunate things happen. We've just been mired in trying to get around it, and I'll share with you all later. But let me just ask you, Chief Norris, we spoke about. I want to just be able to put Ella Austin on the table, because when we decided to get city funding to redo the campus, one of the very specific things we did is really want to be able to reach out, because we've got such a critical mass in Dignity Hills and in Government Hills, et cetera, of seniors. And so we literally, when we had the issues with weather, people actually came to Ellen and we were up and running. We had no blackouts, which was really wonderful. And so again, Chief, I'm not asking for money or anything, but I just want to be able to make it as a place for have as many as possible where we're leveraging resources, because we've got federal and other dollars. We're not asking for money from you, but we're just really thinking about the location in that community. So I'd love to have this conversation with you, and I'll call you.
Well, and first of all, Beverly, I didn't realize it was you. Good morning.
Good
Yes,
morning, sir.
I know we've had this conversation. I think we've had it at the council chambers a couple of times, and then I also sent Chief Lodge out there, and I know he did a walkthrough of your facility, and we've looked at that. And I think the actual point of all of this is that it's realized that there's two missions here, right? And I go to fire department speak every now and then because that's what I'm used to. But there is the emergency side, but we're also not trying to tell anybody you can't open up your doors to people in need. What we want to make sure is that we're all doing it in a similar fashion. I think there's a lot of collaboration that could happen. There's a lot of services that take place in different parts of the city that can be shared. And we just want to make sure it's done in a cooperative and in a correct way. We want to move forward. Being that, and right now, I know y'all are getting ready to design a beautiful new, or renovate that facility, all of those other things, that we may be moving a little faster on the emergency side than what those renovations are going to happen. But we definitely want partnerships, especially in Dignity, that you do have a population that's very vulnerable there, and we realize the services that can be provided. We want to enhance those services, not limit them. And so even if it's not on the emergency side where we say, hey, we're going to be able to shelter 100 people here, there is definitely some community support that can happen there besides that. So we definitely welcome all of that. And I will tell you, Beverly, I appreciate your passion for the East Side.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And have a wonderful day.
You too.
Thank you, Ann. I miss you.
So good to hear your voice. We have one more question, time for that, from Monster Moms.
Hi, Miss Ann. Good morning, everybody.
That's a hell of a name, by the way, Monster Mom.
It's your strength. It shows strength, right? Strength
Or a
and
little
love.
scary.
So, I just want to say thank you for inviting me to the meeting. And I think that what y'all are saying is more than amazing. With my voice, Ann knows that I just love to speak about my passions. And I think that is amazing what you're doing right now to actually incorporate all of the city is absolutely amazing. We have locations. I partner with a lot of agencies. One, Miss Beverly, so it was lovely to hear her voice this morning, and David. But we do a lot of collaborations because we're Monster Moms and we have to be everywhere, right? But in the same aspect, we're working on that harm reduction part. We're working on that houseless part, and that's something that we deal with a lot being over here on the Walsham area, but also being on side, we deal with that so much, so for y'all to be able to make this collaboration work on every side and every part of town, I think that's amazing. I'm always going to have pure and amazing words to say. I have no questions. I'm just thankful to be a part.
And what I can add to that is somebody had brought up the Baltimore model, and whether you look at Baltimore or the Lighthouse model in Los Angeles or the Lily Pad model in Houston, there's a saying in the fire department: once you looked at one fire department, you've seen one fire department. Cities are the same way. So San Antonio is a very diverse community, but we're different than every other city out there. Our resources are different. Our vulnerability is different. Our dangers and our hazards are different. And so we're going to need a different model to really deal with what we're doing in the community. A community-driven model for certain of those things is definitely what everybody is interested in. And I'll just thank Ann again for all the work that her and her team do in that to move forward. It's not a fast process, but it is a process that needs to be gone through, and I think everybody will be better for it. But we also have to realize, and I think as Ann spoke of Maslow's needs, We just have to realize that, yeah, shelter and water and food, that's the base of the pyramid, but everybody's relationship to that or perspective on that is different. And so we just need to figure out what works for San Antonio. And I promise you, once we get done, people are going to be quoting the San Antonio model, not the Baltimore model, because we just do everything better.
Yeah, I think Ann knows that. Yeah, I think Ann knows
We
that
do.
since we started the Domestic Violence Collective, right, Ann? She has told us so many people have reached out because of how we started it, what we've been doing. I think that's amazing. I really do. But she's right. Like, that biggest thing is that everybody does things different. And here in San Antonio, there's a lot of trauma. So that's what we work so hard to be able to teach those tools. So yeah, I'm done. I'm done. I'm just
Thanks, Kashanka. I want to thank everybody for being with us this morning at the intersection, and I will see you next week at the intersection, and we'll be hearing from the Surgeon General's office. Take care. Thanks, Brian, for being with us.
Of course. Thank you, everybody, for having me. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.